Everything I do is dedicated to you, the coach, who is passionate about coaching, the skill set of coaching, and wants to create income from it. It's called a business. And I'm helping you start from scratch, create the structure, all your systems, your processes, so you can get your message out there and get it in front of people and get clients from that, or monetize it however you want and create an income from it, so you can create a lifestyle that you dream of and while you're doing what you love. And that's a great part about it. So today's topic is basically launching a full-time coaching business, or the fundamentals of a full-time coaching business. And it's an overview of kind of like where we start from that, if you will, that 10,000 foot view. Before we get going on this, I do record all of my Tuesday live shows. I put them on my website, sellingcoaching.com, in the university. So you can check that out. Like I said, I help coaches transition to a full-time business. And if you were looking for a great resource to start you off, right on the homepage of sellingcoaching.com, that's where I have the first 3 vital steps to launching your full-time coaching business. If you enter your name and email address, that's going to give you instant access to that. It's an audio recording you can listen to. That's going to help you with that piece. And then also that's going to put you in my email community, not only to receive some great information on a weekly basis, but it's also going to allow you to start to see how I communicate with my audience, because one of the biggest things I want to teach you to do is to be able to communicate with your audience, because that's what we do. We've got to be able to communicate our message. So as we talk about this topic today, of the fundamentals of a full-time coaching business, there are certain things that you've got to focus on and pay attention to, because you have to remember this. Like, here's the biggest thing, right? There's so much information that's out there, right? There's so many people and gurus and experts and all these people who are probably in your inbox right now and sending emails to you and writing books and doing courses that you're paying for and doing all that stuff, myself included, right, that are telling you how to do these things. And my message to you here is we've got to start understanding what are the fundamentals, because we've got all these shiny objects. And I'm not going to knock anybody and say it's bad or it's inaccurate or whatever. It's just like, you know what? I'm sure these things or these methods for any of all these people. What I want to do, though, is I want to take you back to the fundamentals. I want to talk about the fundamentals, because there are no new fundamentals. And when it comes to like a sport or activity or an occupation or whatever it is, a philosophy, right? There are a handful at most of the fundamentals that make up that game or that industry or that occupation that you've got to be good at and begin to practice and ultimately hopefully master in order to actually be successful in that area. And it's no different with our coaching business. And today what I want to do is I want to start to go through and I want to start to outline some of those fundamentals. And hopefully there's some of the things that you've heard or seen before, but I kind of want to kind of refocus you if you haven't been focused on that, so you can start to realize like this doesn't have to be complicated. You know, doing this business doesn't have to be complicated. Yet I see coaches, and I interact with coaches all the time. I see them out there on such a regular basis. And they're just, got their head in their hands and their laps going like, oh my God, I'm confused. I can't get clients. I can't get my message out there. And I don't know how this works. And it doesn't have to be that way. It does not have to be that way. And so let's start off with the fundamentals in terms of like where you want to begin. And I think that's the biggest piece is starting off is where do you want to begin so that you know where you can start moving forward, right? So you want to understand the main objectives of your business. So when I say the main objectives of your business is in order for us to get clients, and I'm just talking, there's a lot of ways you can monetize. You can sell products, you can sell courses. I'm just going to talk about one-on-one coaching clients, one-on-one or group clients, right? But at the end of the day, if you want to get clients, like this is the main objectives to that is we've got to understand a message, right? We got to have a message. And I'll talk about that a little bit, right? And how we come up with our message, right? But we've got to have a message. And our job is, the main objective is to take that message and share it in front of as many people as we possibly can on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. That's it. So however I can get my message out in front of people, that's my main objective. Because if I can get my message in front of more and more people every single day, there are going to be some people who are like, wow, the message is okay. Hopefully that's a very small percentage. There's going to be hopefully a larger percentage where they're like, wow, this is good stuff. Those are the types of people that, let's say, join your audience, come into your database, whether it's on social media, your email list, etc., because they want to be a part of what you do. And then there's going to be a very small percentage, hopefully just as small of a percentage as people that don't like you, or that it's like, yeah, it's all right. But there's going to be an equally small percentage of people where they're like, wow, this is good, and I'm going through something in my world right now where I want to do something about, and therefore I want to look into maybe hiring this person because it sounds like they're a coach, or something like that, right? So that's where there's a small percentage of people where the timing is right for them to do something about what they want to do something about, and those people end up becoming your clients. Now, one thing you got to know is that doesn't mean that those people will automatically just reach out and call you up or come up to you after the event or wherever, however they're seeing or hearing or reading this message. We've got to be able to interact and follow up with people. And sometimes we've got to dig these people out of the woodwork because they don't just necessarily just raise their hand and saying, oh my God, I want to hire you. That's not how it works. But the reality is based on those percentages, and we can give you some statistics, and it's like 1% of the people will hire you, 80% of the people will, come into your database, whatever. You can hear a bunch of different, who cares what they are? Just know the majority of people will like your message enough where they want to do something in terms of maybe become a part of your audience. A very, very small percentage, maybe 1-2%. Can the numbers change? Yeah, it could be a lot higher than that too. But a smaller percentage of those people are going to be very interested, and the timing is going to be right for them to do something about it. But in order for you to take advantage of those percentages, whatever they are, right, they're going to be different for everybody. Let's forget about what they are. The point is that you've got to get your message in front of new people, right? There's a lot of different ways of doing it. That's called marketing, right? We market our message. And we're going to clarify as we get into marketing, and not today, but like when we understand marketing, what we're going to start to do is we're going to start to understand there's so many different ways we can market our message. There's free ways, there's paid ways, there's live ways face-to-face, there's live ways virtually like I'm doing right now, right? And there's everywhere in between in terms of online, offline, things like that, free events, seminars, paid events, written articles, video blogs, and social media. I mean, there's so many different ways you can get your message out there. And that's where we've got to start to, from a marketing standpoint, we've got to pick an avenue or a method to start us off. But going back to the main objective of our business is you've got to get yourself and your message in front of more people every single day. And I don't care if it's one person or if it's 100 people or 1,000 people. Because the reality is it's not all glamorous, and you're not going to do an event. And yeah, we all want to speak to, large groups of people. Well, some of you don't because it makes you nervous, right? But that would be the ultimate thing if you had a large group of people you could speak to. But the reality is if you can get in a room and speak to 5 or 6 people, if you can do a live event and like this and 5 or 6 people show up, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. I've worked with many speakers over the years who are multimillionaires earning multiple millions in their business. And the reality is they'd fly across the country. I've done it too. I've flown across the country to speak to 5 people in a room, in a hotel room next to an airport. Like, that's the reality of it sometimes. But we've got to start to recognize the value of getting our message in front of people. That's the most important thing, is understanding the main objective of our business. So when it comes to that is that now if we bring it back, we start to go in, okay, now, so if I'm going to be able to do that, one of the first things I've got to understand is where do I begin with my message? And that's where I like to start to begin with, what is your headline? And people call it your niche. I can call it your niche headline, or I just like to call it your headline, where I like to say the phrase, helping who with what specifically? Helping who with what specifically? And right there, that is what we want to start to figure out, because that is when we understand, who's my ideal client, who am I helping, and what are they going through in this world right now? What are they experiencing in their world that not only they want to do something about, but they want to do something about it right now, and they're open for help. They're seeking help. They would consider help, and there'd be value for them if someone could help them through this sticking point that they're at. Because if there's no value, then there's going to be no exchange of money. Meaning they're not going to want to hire us. There's going to be no value for hiring us, right? So those pieces have to check out. That's selling, right? Selling is and we can go, I talk all about selling and other events and things like that, but all selling is someone has a need. The timing of that need is right now, and they're open to taking a closer look at, or they would consider a conversation with you about how you could help them if they were to hire you as your coach. Like, that's all selling is understanding that piece right there. So we've got to now start to determine that niche, or helping who with what specifically. That's the headline that we put on our website as an example, right? So if you go to sellingcoaching.com, that's my website. The first thing you see is, besides a picture of myself, is helping coaches transition to a full-time business. That's my helping who coaches with what specifically transitioning to a full-time business, right? I could be a lot more vague and drawn back and say I help entrepreneurs grow their business. Okay, so doesn't everybody, right? But I went more specific than that. I could even draw that back even further and say, instead of saying helping entrepreneurs grow their business, I could just say I help people, grow their business, right? So see, I'm getting less and less specific with it. And so as we get more general, that's where we've got to start to understand, well, where is it important? Where am I going to be able to find these people? So as I get more general, the places I can find these people in my marketing efforts gets bigger, because I can, if I'm helping everybody, if I'm helping people become more fulfilled, my market is like the world, right? Whereas if I get more narrow, or the narrower I get, obviously the narrower the places, or I condense the places with where these people are at as well. So what that does is that makes my job in terms of marketing efforts a lot easier, because it keeps me a lot more focused. So when we ask ourselves the questions, well, should I go to this networking meeting? And you've identified you're helping who with what's a lot more specifically. Well, it's very simple to ask, well, is my who going to be at this networking meeting? Or if they're not there specifically, do these people have access or connections to my ideal who in terms of my ideal client? And if the answer is yes, then I should go. If the answer is I don't know, or I'm not sure, possibly, then it's worth maybe checking a look. If the answer is no, then I'm not going to go. So, right. So the headline that we start off with is very important. Now, let me get into this here. Is I'm not going to go into too much into depth of this. And is where we go from there is to say, well, if I put some time into figuring out my helping who with what specifically, and a lot of coaches can't quite get there, or they rack their brains, and it's the whole figuring out the niche thing, right? Which is really hard to do sometimes. And I've done my business like now where I'm really specific with who I'm helping with what specifically. We'll wind back to 2004, and probably for even like 10 years after that, I wasn't specific at all, especially starting off. I would have moments through the 10 years where I would get more specific, but for the most part, I was just general, and helping people find their true authentic self and how that relates to wherever they're doing, whether it's business or relationships or health or anything like that. It was my business was called True You Now. You know what I mean? So that was very general. I created success in it just as much as I'm creating success now. It just, the approach was very different in terms I went there. But my message here is that if you're trying to narrow it down, again, all the gurus and experts, including myself, will recommend that that's the place to go. However, if you can't quite do that, and if you give it some effort, then maybe you don't niche down, because there's plenty of people out there who don't really have a niche, who are helping everybody create more purpose and fulfillment in their life, as a general speaking, and they're doing well with it. Like I said, I created great income doing that general, and I'm creating a great income doing it very specifically. So it doesn't mean you have to get specific in order to create success. What it does mean is, how about this? Having done both successfully, I will say niche wins all the time over not having a niche, only because I found that there's more predictability and consistency in terms of my message, because I've got walls and boundaries. Because when I'm speaking now, I'm talking to a coach who wants something very specific, Whereas I'm speaking on this other side where I'm more general, I could be speaking to a mom or to a dad or to anyone with different age range and different aspects of their life who's, let's say, looking for purpose and fulfillment, so I've got to kind of pull back and almost water down my message because I can't talk to specific emotions or specific situations in a specific gender, in a specific time frame of their life, in a specific occupation, right? That's where, because I'm a lot more broad. And so sometimes I found being in that spot, working with other coaches as well, is that sometimes you get lost in your own confusion. That makes sense. Or lost in your own message because you don't have a message. Even though you might be grounded in purpose or whatever, you can go in so many different directions. You can get lost in that. And sometimes it can be confusing. And also in terms of when you get a client, it's just like, well, how did I get that client? Where did I get that client from? Whereas when you're a lot more niched down, it can be a lot more specific and it's a lot more duplicatable, the process with which you're going. Whereas over here, I found that I was just bouncing around in different places and I didn't know where I was getting my clients from, other than obviously they came from this event or things like that. But it was harder to quantify it when I was a lot more general. But either way, what my message is, you've got to understand the purpose of the business, which is I got to get my message in front of more people. And then we've got to start to understand, okay, well, who are those people and what is my message, right? The headline, helping who with what specifically. And once we get there, that's where we can start pulling together some basic fundamentals in terms of an online presence, right? And it's like, oh my God, I got to do a website. I got to do a lead capture on my website, create a free offer. I got to create social media. Well, let's like back that way off for a second. Do you have to do a website? Well, no. Eventually, it'd be nice to have an online presence. Some people think, oh, I've got to have a website before I get going. And some people don't have to. Like, no, you don't have to have a website before you get going. At some point, yeah, we want to do a website. We want to have an online presence, right? But right away, what's most important is that if I understand the people I want to get in front of, whether I'm specific or general, and I understand, what I'm helping them with, even if it's specific or general, without doing anything else, I can get myself in front of people. And this is why I'm talking fundamentals. I can get myself in front of people and I could have an event. In other words, literally, today's Tuesday. You could do something this Sunday and you could get 5 to 10 people in a room. I don't care. It could be in your living room. It could be in a friend's room. It could be in the basement of a church, in a library, and you fill in the blank. A friend who works at a company that has a conference room, and you say, hey, could you hook me up? Do you mind if I talk to the owner or blah, blah, blah? The real estate office that has a back room with 5 or 6 chairs in it that you could use that they're not going to charge you for. And then you work your butt off over the next week, like literally, hey, call in friends, family. Could you bring a friend? You can get 5 to 10 people in a room. I know you can. And talk about a most general topic of, creating more fulfillment in your life. And you could do an event. And guess what? You can get your next client out of that. Like, that's how it works. Without a website, without complicating anything. And say, oh, we got to create this funnel and we got to create the email list and we've got to, some of that stuff we need to start bringing in there. But I want to go back to the fundamentals of getting your message in front of people. And you're like, oh, I can't find a place. Well, can you get on? You have a phone, don't you? Yes, you do. And you're on Facebook. You're on Instagram. You're on YouTube. And if you're not, you could get on in a matter of 5 minutes. And can you do a live broadcast from your phone with the most simple technology? You literally go to YouTube. Well, YouTube, you have to set it up. It takes 24 hours. But once you set it up, or Facebook, once you have a Facebook page or whatever, you literally click live. You click a button that says live, and then there's another button that says go live. And you could be broadcasting, and you could talk about something. And if you're like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm talking about, you could go live and talk about something. And literally, when I've pushed my clients to do something like that, guess what? Some people have gotten clients from that as a result of the conversations that ensued after that. So the point is that those are the fundamentals, right? And like I showed you, either path of whether you have the message or not, that specifically you can actually get in front of people, right? So those are the fundamentals. Now, where you can go from there is then you can start tightening things up. Then you can start saying, yeah, I want to have an online presence. Yes, I want to get a website. Yes, on the website, we need to have a free offer. We need to have some type of a lead capture, some type of a resource that we give away. We just want to make sure we have that. Even if no one ever went to your website and, opted in for that and entered their name and email address. Like I shared at the beginning, go to sellingcoaching.com, enter your name and email, for, the first 3 vital steps of launching your full-time coaching business, right? So you can go there and do that, but if no one ever did that, it's important for me to have something like that. We can set up an email platform. We can then start with our friends and family, and we can email those people, right? And we can stay in front of those people, and we can, every event we do, live event or virtual event, or through communications on social media and people we meet in a grocery store or whatever, networking meetings, we can add, and we can add people to our email community, so we can start staying in front of them on a weekly basis. And then we can start looking at our marketing, right? So I went from a very fundamental level of like, hey, can you put 5 people in a room and speak your message? Can you get on a Facebook or YouTube live and communicate a message? Yes. And can that lead to a client? Absolutely. Now, we can now go through more structured process and say, okay, once we've gone through those steps, okay, now we want to market ourselves. All right, so how do we begin to market ourselves, right? There's lots of different avenues, but what's a path I could take? Pick that path and go down that path and start to see what results you get. Learn from that. I'm a big advocate of teaching that you've got to have, the first 18 to 24 months in your business. That's going to be that phase where you're going to start learning and understanding and cultivating your message and cultivating your presence. But you've just got to start. And that 18 to 24 months isn't like, oh, I start this week and then next week I don't do anything. And then the next week I'm sick. And the next week I'm like, oh, I got to start this again. And then I'm kind of like going like this with activity. That's 18 to 24 months of week after week, consistently getting your message out there. And maybe if it's any and all different formats, or trying things here and there to see what works, what's not working, and learning, getting yourself in front of people, getting clients from that, and learning, why are people hiring you? What are they attracted to with your message? Refining and refining, so that yes, over that time, are you going to earn some money? Absolutely. Are you going to earn sick retirement money? Maybe, but most likely not. Is it possible? Do people do it? Yes. Again, a very small percentage, right? And if it happens and things clicks, I've had clients who have done 6 figures in their first year and haven't stopped since then. And I've got clients that just never get a client in their first year, right? But again, the percentages on both ends, the person who never gets a client in the first year and the person who does 6 figures and beyond in their first year, are very, very small. And then it goes like clump like that in the middle, where like the graph, if you will, where the majority of people earn, and forget about the numbers, but just a decent amount to offset some of their costs, and they're getting, a handful to a dozen clients over the course of a year. And that's where we want to get going in that first 18 to 24 months. And then we start building year after year. We create some steady growth. Like I've had some clients over the past year. It's like the first year they earn $4,000, and the next year they earn, what do they earn this year in that example? They went 4 to 12 to 44, right? And so now they're in their 3rd year. It's like, okay, could we get like over 50? Can we get 60, 70? Because then next thing you know, you're 5 years in and you're earning a healthy 6-figure income. But when you've done it like that, now you understand the process and you're solid in terms of how you've done it. Would I love you to create those results a lot sooner than that? Absolutely. But the reality is that there's a lot to figure out as you go along. So what I wanted to do today is to start with, forget about, I skimmed over the last 10 minutes or 5-6 minutes, I skimmed over like all the other stuff. But I wanted to go back to the base fundamentals of saying, hey, know your message. And know the objective, which is getting your message in front of as many people as you can. And then what is your message and who is it for? And then start to actually get that out there. And then we can start to build on some of the other pieces of that. And you don't have to complicate it any more than that. Because even when I've been in the business for many, many years, and I'm going on to my 16th year at this point, and as a coach doing this full time, there are moments where I kind of question everything I do, or like, oh, maybe I'm doing this, or I need to do something different. And I always have to go back to the fundamental of, I just got to get my message in front of more people. And when I've done that, and when I've interacted with more people, guess what happens on the other end? Not immediately, but in the next week or the next 2 weeks or maybe in the next month, I get clients. That's how it works.